Hello, and welcome to an overview of the PTPS Verbal Workshop Curriculum. So in this video, I'm going to walk through this note, hit on the major points of each station in the workshop, and give you a feel, hopefully, for how the workshop is going to run. Okay, let's get started. So first, I just want to remind you where you can find this information. If you go to the verbal folder in the drive, there's a subfolder for workshops. Then you can find the notes and the workshop stations, which I'll go through these folders later. But the note is what we're working on now. This is note W, a workshop overview. So some overall notes to begin. First, the way the workshop is going to work is not that you just sit and present slides to students for 2 hours or something like that. You're going to divide into 3 different stations. There's a station for each of the main subtopics in verbal, essay, reading, and writing and language. And each teacher, or if you have more than 3 teachers, then pairs of teachers, should stick with one station the whole time. So you'll have 2 essay teachers and 2 reading teachers and 1 writing and language teacher if you had a total of 5 teachers. Teachers shouldn't be rotating, you should just stay at one station. And I think this will make it easier on you because you won't have to prepare nearly as much material, and it should run a bit smoother on the day of the workshop too. Students, on the other hand, will rotate through the stations. They'll spend about 40 minutes at each station and then rotate to the next one. And be careful to keep time during the workshop. Don't let the first rotation last for a full hour and then you'll run out of time for students to go to other stations. Make sure that it's roughly 40 minutes at each station so students can visit all of them within the 2-hour time frame. Something else, beginning this semester, we are having our workshops go paperless. I'd love to say this is because we care about the environment, but instead it's because, as I said in an earlier video, we printed stuff in the past and then went bankrupt. So now it's paperless. Hooray. So it's paperless. Another point is because we divide into stations and you're going to be sort of spread across the room at 3 different stations, the workshop will be projector-less. So you're not going to be projecting anything on slides. And again, I recommend just sort of setting up the room into like 3 different stations, 3 different areas where you have a teacher with a group of students and then you can rotate. So because it's paperless and projectorless, how are you going to share the resources with students? Well, they're all going to be available online. And this means a few things. First, it means that you should display the resources on your laptop as you walk through them with students. It's probably best if you can just sort of put your laptop in a space where some students can view it and be able to walk through materials with them. But also that's not super convenient if you have like a lot of students. That works if you have like 2 or 3, but if a lot of students show up to the workshop, you can't have 20 students hovering over your laptop. So we're also giving students access to the materials themselves. We've emailed students letting them know they should bring laptops to the workshop if they have one. We're hoping that at least 1/3 of students bring laptops because with that rate we can have like people share and we'll have at most like 3 people looking at one computer screen, which is just fine. So a link is provided here for students to access the materials. They don't have this link, so you should give it to them on the day of the workshop. It's the same for all the stations. Just write it on the board at the beginning, tinyurl.com/PTPS fall 18/verb-ws for workshop. That's the link. If you click on it, you'll see that it takes students to this workshop stations folder. This is the same folder that's in your drive, but students only have access to this portion. So they won't see any of this stuff leading up to it. They won't have access to this note. They'll just have access to these resources. And so you can follow along with them, or they can follow along with you, rather, as they go through the material. Okay. And a last point is that this link and these resources will remain online indefinitely until, I don't know, Google crashes or something. So students are free to reference these materials whenever they want after going to the workshop in the coming months or year when they're studying for the exam. And I would remind students of that. This is not just something they access during the workshop and then it goes away. They can use these resources afterward. And of course, the most important note is to have fun. Okay, so that is an overview of how the workshop is going to work. And now I want to go through in more detail what you're going to do at each of these stations. Now, I'm not going to walk through all of the resources for each station in depth or make videos for all the slide decks. The slide decks are just modifications of the slide decks you're teaching in the lessons, so there are already videos for those or will be in future weeks. But I just want to give an overview of each of the stations now. So one first point to mention is if you're teaching at the first workshop, this video is going to be the same for both workshops, so I don't know when you're watching it, but if you're watching it and you're teaching at the first workshop, we've only covered the writing material so far. So I encourage, if you're I encourage you to, it's up to you all how you want to divide yourselves up among stations, but I encourage new teachers to go with the writing station, ideally, because you already know the writing and language material. That's been lessons 1 and 2. Then there's also an essay station, and if you have too many new teachers and they can't all be at the writing station, then essay station is probably the second best bet. There's some new material that you'd have to review ahead of time and teach yourself, but a lot of it is similar to what you learned in order to grade the essays. So because you've been grading essays, you sort of already know some of this. And then the one that I really recommend returning teachers do, or that you save for returning teachers if there are any, is the reading station, because this is material we haven't covered yet. New teachers could do it, but you'd have to sort of teach yourself all of this, which might require a lot of time. Okay, so that is an overview of the stations and how I would split it up. Then going into a little more detail, the reading station, under each station I've just listed the activities you should do. I think that all of them will total around 40 minutes, and then you'll repeat it 3 times for each group of students. So the first thing you should do for reading is go over the reading slides. All of these resources can be found here in these folders. So for reading, I have some reading slides. You should look at them ahead of time. Then have students read the science passage and answer the associated questions, and walk through the answers with them and why they're correct. Have students read the literature passage and answer questions, and again walk through the answers. And that will probably take you the full 40 minutes. If you have time, you can also read these other 2 passages. If not, tell students they're there for them to try on their own. Then the writing station. There are no slides for the writing station. There's only one resource in this folder. You can see if we go here, there's just this writing worksheet. So if you're at the writing station, your 40 minutes is going to be spent walking through this worksheet. So you can see there are sort of examples or these mini lessons that you can walk through, and then there's some practice problems. Another sort of mini lesson and practice problems. And so forth. It's 6 pages. It's just 6 pages of these lessons and practice problems. Don't feel pressured to finish the entire thing. If students have a lot of questions, let them go at the pace that's comfortable. yeah, and students can always finish it on their own time. There's an answer key for both your reference and students. Almost all of the answers, all the questions here not only have answers, but also explanations for why the answers are correct or incorrect. I think a couple of them might be missing explanations, but for the most part, they're here. So that's the writing station. And then the essay station, you're going to do something sort of similar to reading. You're going to start with the essay slides in the folder. Then you're going to review the literary devices worksheet. So if you're a new teacher, you might not know too much about this yet, but you do know that the SAT essay is asking students to analyze how an author constructs arguments via rhetorical and literary devices and persuasive techniques. So this is a list of various literary or rhetorical devices that an author might use in their article, or in their in the article that students are given to analyze. So allusion, analogy, anecdote, logos, pathos, ethos, parallelism, simile, understatement, statistics, all of these are various rhetorical techniques that authors may use, and therefore that students can sort of draw on to construct their analysis. So you want to go through the slides and then just walk through briefly these rhetorical devices to give students some examples. Then you want students to read the passage in the practice essay file, and then just ask them to take 5 minutes and write an outline for an SAT essay they would write based on the passage, and of course based on all the information that you covered in the previous time. And then debrief it and explain how you might write an outline for the essay. Okay, so that's it. That's an overview of how things are going to go. 2 more notes. The first note is, again, you're not going to have a projector, so as you're walking through these materials with students, don't treat this as though you're lecturing, like when you're walking through the slides. Students are going to have their own laptops. They're going to be able to view the material too, so treat it more as like a discussion with a small group of students. A small group tutoring session rather than you lecturing to a class. It's a different setting. Secondly, make sure you review the resources ahead of time. These are, again, if it's reading or essay, we haven't covered that information yet this semester, so you definitely need to review it ahead of time. And if it's writing, the writing worksheet has different examples than the ones we've done in the slides, so you should review the worksheet and the answers thoroughly before trying to teach it to students. Okay, so that's an overview of the workshop. If you have any other questions or issues come up, just message me on Slack, and good luck.